Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a new speed build. If you're new here, my name is Sadie and I love to build fantasy stuff and new objects in The Sims 4. This time I built the City of Mana, a fantasy themed 50x50 lot in Oasis Springs. Without CC, but using the tool mod by Twisted Mexi to arrange and rotate items. This mod is not needed to download the build, everything will stay in its place even on console, but without further ado, I hope you'll enjoy the video and let's get into the speed build. As some of you might know, I am working on a save file to turn Glimmerbrook into a Hobbit-inspired world called Hobbitbrook, but as I was working on 5 separate lots for this using the same style and colors of items, I just needed a little break from it, and so I started experimenting after I saw a beautiful artwork by Flavio Bolla. And this experiment quickly turned into a full-blown 50x50 project. I don't know how it happened, but when it flows, you know? I started out with a big round deck, trying to somehow get multiple levels with platforms, but soon realizing that platforms won't be the best option to work with and started again. This time placing the outcome of my first practices and working from there. I created some decorations on the round decks using steam gates from Get Together and stone arcs from Jungle Adventure. For the building I tested out sand-colored items such as the tent from Get Famous as awnings and room divider from City Living as decorations inside the windows. For more detail I placed trims using a Get Together shelf as well as the ornamental trims from Jungle Adventure. I also placed some benches from Vampires to create a nice little ornamental detail on the exterior walls. The same benches were used for more detail on the roof as well as a lamp from Vampires acting as a dome, finished off with a fountain as a trim. I resized the little clover-shaped windows to only work with the cutout, but we will get to that later on. Moving on to probably the most eye-catching detail in this build, which are the rounded staircases, so roll the tool time transition. I started out by arranging a debug stone post in a curve, kinda winging it, which was not the smartest idea, but it gladly worked out in the end. If you do this, I definitely recommend you to build whatever round shape you want your staircases to be adhered to first, so that you can align the debug stone on that exact curve. Makes it way easier and more precise, but luckily I was able to eyeball it pretty well. I placed the first stone post with the little arrow pointing downwards, toggled it active, cloned and rotated by 5 degrees, and then gravity pulled it into place. Once you created your curve, you group select your items and then rotate them by 90 degrees, which almost creates the perfect shape on its own. One step is 0.25 tiles high, so we deselect one, elevate the rest for 0.25, deselect one, elevate the rest by 0.25, and so on until you reach the last stone post. After all the elevating was done, I group selected the items, cloned and rotated them by -90 degrees to create the same shape, just vertical. I aligned it to the staircase and then I closed up all the little gaps, gravity pulling my selection into place. But I guess depending on what look you're going for, this step is not needed. And pun not intended. Once that was prepared, I finally placed the round deck that they should be placed on and filled up the space I needed on top. And then I created the same thing, just mirrored, pretty much doing the exact same thing again, so I will skip through that to the point where I finished the staircases. Using the vertical stone posts, I aligned them under my staircase so that it would create a nice uniform shape on both sides, which I think is totally satisfying to watch. Sometimes things just come together so quickly and exactly as you imagined them, and this was one of those times for me. Super happy how these turned out, and I'm pretty sure I'll reuse them somewhere in the future. And now that the staircases are done, we will hop a bit into the future as I created some water features in between, so please don't be confused, it just made the most sense for me to cut it that way. Let's dive into it. Wow, I'm really good with puns today. At first I grabbed the island living waterfall and resized it. That won't do anything to its appearance, but it will resize the footprint so it is easier to work with. I placed it in the gap between the round deck and the building on the left and placed some base game rocks behind it. Then I created a pool underneath it and pulled it out to the front. To cross this little stream I made a bridge using platforms. I placed a window from Discover University on the pool below because the framing of it just looked amazing on the little bridge. I also placed some railings from Get Together that I rotated to create a round shape. And then I placed the round deck on the right using the room that I saved earlier, created a water feature on the middle using a spa day waterfall and the stone arcs from Jungle Adventure. Moved the little bridge to the center, added another waterfall, and then we caught up to the staircase part. So now our timeline is in order again. Moving on to more decorations on the staircase using different fountains as well as the railing I used for the little bridge. I let you enjoy this part and tune in again once the pool is done. I saved all of what I made so far as rooms, as I noticed that I wanted another layer on the bottom. Saving everything as rooms really was simple at this point, but I'm also glad I didn't create any more buildings yet. All I really had to do is save the round platforms on top, save the pool, and draw some rooms around parts that weren't connected to either of those. Saved all of that good stuff and then started again, this time on elevated terrain. This is a perfect example of why I always say I don't plan things, they just kinda happen, at least if I do something that's not a replica. And I always hate myself for not planning out things, so if you still want my advice, even if I don't follow it myself, plan out your buildings. At least in some way, shape or form, like first terrainscaping, then shell, and after that all the details. I think that would be a pretty good system to work with. Should print it in caps and hang it on the wall in front of me, probably. Anyways, back to the build mode. I placed all of the pre-made parts and continued on more buildings. I realized pretty much at the start of this experiment that we don't really have any windows that would have fit the aesthetics of the build, and so I made a few myself. To do that, I only used the cutout from windows and doors, meaning that I resized them so that you don't see the framing, but they still leave a hole in the wall, which creates kind of an open window. Then I created a frame around that using the same stone post that I used for the spiral staircases, just resized to a really small size. I saw SatiSims doing that and I thought to myself, why have I never thought of using this little stone post to create framing? But hey, here I am. Thanks Fanta for the inspiration. I only created one side, saved it as a room and placed it again facing the other direction to complete the shape. I cloned that framing and lowered it to create more details and then placed that window to all four sides of the second building. I also created smaller windows using the same technique but other windows obviously, and I let you again enjoy this part without my explanation as it is resizing, cloning and rotating with T.O.O.L as usual. Creating custom windows and roofing really got out of hand for me, but with T.O.O.L's most recent update, creating them just got way more easy and fast. We can now rotate an item selection around only one center, meaning I can rotate these windows to whatever angle I need them once they are done. Before this update, group selecting multiple items and then rotating them really just messed everything up, as it rotated every item on its own axis. With the new tool upgrade, we can now select multiple items and rotate them as they were just one single item. I actually had to create these windows on a diagonal as well as a horizontal before this update, and if I would have waited, I could have just rotated the first window in seconds instead of having to create it on a different angle for a second time. Well, anyways, now the update is here and it's great and you should totally get it and play around with it. Tool just gets more and more powerful and convenient with every update and I love it, if that's not apparent. I gave more detail to the rounded decks by aligning Get Together railings along the edges and then elevated them to sit on top of the fence. And another round shape to the first floor using curved fence parts from Discover University. Moving on to the second rounded staircase on the bottom that I created by cloning the ones I already made and pulling them into their place. This time they faced inwards and I connected them to another round deck on the bottom. All of these staircases will hide either stairs or ladders that are fully functional. And then, after all this tool work and item creations, it was finally time to actually create some more buildings and fill up the lot. Starting out with a little tower that I decorated with some ornamental items. As a dome on top I used the vampire's lamp, as a trim I used the realm of magic fountain, and as a wall replacement I used an octagonal side table from City Living. It has these amazing shaped cutouts that work amazing as oriental windows. To use them as such, I just had to align windows behind the cutouts, and I will later on fill these up with blue colored rings to cover up the fountain bits and to give it a more magical look. I then placed some more rocks from the Journey to Batuu pack, as they have an amazing texture and just fitted perfectly color-wise. I decorated the waterfall and the slope on the first level with them and then moved on to the next building. I decorated that one with the Spa Day waterfall, jungle adventure stone arcs and placed blue tinted windows behind it to give the waterfalls a more intense color. Then I placed more rooms on the bottom, one with a staircase connected to it, and then I just continued to place rooms, move them around and adjust their height until I was satisfied with the silhouette. I love playing around with different heights, and the easiest way to do that is by not connecting the different buildings and then adjusting them with the foundation arrow. This allows you to work with much more levels than just the 4 that are given to us by default. It's just sometimes a bit tricky to connect them. Way easier since we have ladders though. I also wanted to have more round decks on the higher levels, so I made use of the room I saved earlier, which conveniently also had the curved staircase attached to it. I flattened the terrain on the bottom and decorated with more rocks, snowy escape hot springs, as well as different debug parts from Journey to Batuu. Moving on to the right side of the build, where I started out with another round deck. I placed it and raised the foundation to reveal all the decorations and went on to more towers and buildings, making use of pre-made rooms whenever I could. I also started to place my previously made windows wherever I thought they would fit and added some more details to the buildings on the left side. After that I placed 2 more buildings on the very bottom and created the same shape of window I made earlier, just on a diagonal. Again, I made this before the amazing tool upgrade, so looking back at it just makes me excited that I never have to create items twice again. Behind these windows I placed dust mesh from the City Living pack, as well as a resized portal from Realm of Magic for the amazing animations. I did this for the first Hobbit Brook building I started out with, completely fell in love with it, and I think I have to prepare you that I will do many custom windows with this animation from now on. I just love how it glows in my favorite colors, and if I can have it in all my builds, I'll take it. I hope you like it too, because again, I'm pretty addicted to them. I also placed some trees before I went back to the staircase on the bottom to make it functional and a bit more pretty. I group selected the custom staircase and moved it away, placed functional stairs to connect the levels, and then placed the custom staircase back on top of it. I rotated a Spa Day waterfall and a Juggle Adventure arc and placed a Realm of Magic fountain on the bottom. Then I decorated the foundation with railings and debug stone posts. I also placed another Journey to Batuu rock and a curve made of Discover University fence parts on the right side in the meantime. On the bottom I drew out more pools and covered up the edges with railings. I created a curve with some of them to give it a more interesting shape. To the right I placed some more buildings and another waterfall, and then it was time for some more decorations around the city. I rotated a Journey to Batuu bridge and placed them wherever I thought a connection would make at least a bit of sense, and then I continued with more buildings. Again I made use of pre-made rooms to fill up areas more quickly, and as the rest is pretty much the same as you already saw it, I will pause the voiceover until it's time for the outro. Hope you will enjoy. And here we are at the end of the video. This lot will be up on the gallery as a park, but it can be used as a spa or residence as well, maybe with a few adjustments. The interior on this lot is pretty simple, to be honest. I just wasn't very inspired, but I think it still works. Some of the buildings are decorational, but most of them can be accessed. It's built on a 50 by 50 lot without CC, and you can get it on my gallery. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did so, please leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. The algorithm really is not on the side of us simmers recently, so you would really help me out. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, bye bye!